Good morning. Good morning. I think we had some issues with the classrooms, but it looks like I'm looking at it. It looks like we're straight now, I think. Um, Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. And you all should be here for producing the Great Commission. So just let me know if you can hear me. I'm checking now. Okay. Okay, good. So, yeah, I'm just looking over here at my monitor, make sure, checking the chat, make sure we're all set. Okay, great. So now that we got the classroom issue straightened out, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am David Baskerville, and like I said before, you should all be here for Producing the Great Commission. Today we're going to talk about video production and video production in your ministry. And so, like I said, the name of this session is called Producing the Great Commission. And I just thought it was a clever title just because that's what we're doing, right? We're producing through media ministry the message of the Great Commission of the gospel to the world. And so, like I said before, I am David Baskerville. I'm a minister, a photographer, and also the media manager here at my church, Kingdom Living Ministries. My pastor was gracious enough to let me stream from here today. So, yeah, we're going to have a fun session. Hopefully you guys will learn a lot. Hopefully I can teach you a lot and answer any questions that you have. And so we'll jump right into it. Mark chapter 16, verse 15, the Great Commission, right? Or at least part of it. And he said to them, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. And so that's what we're really trying to do by doing this. The beauty of the internet is that we have been able to shrink the world to our screens inside our house, our homes. Right now, you guys are watching me and girls are watching me from all over the world, all over the country. In an instant, I was able to click a button right here on my laptop, and you can see me. I can sort of see you, and and we can engage. And I can, if I was to be preaching on Sunday, if this was Sunday morning, I can preach the message of the Great Commission to you, of the message of the gospel, I should say, to you across the world in an instant. And so that's the beauty of the internet. The bad part is we're in a lot of competition with a lot of other distractions and different things across the world when it comes to trying to get the message out of the gospel. And so we're competing with other online distractions and different things. We're not competing with other ministries, but we are, in a sense we are, because we're vying for different people's attention. And so we are just, we're just trying to do the best possible. We're trying to do our best to engage with people across the world and fulfill the Great Commission of preaching the gospel. And so that's why video production or production value is so important in our ministries. And it's something that it's been neglected for, because it's still new. Video production and just video in general, and live streaming especially, is so new to so many churches across the world. Even in our country, in the United States, here in the United States, it's so new. And so people are just trying to get the technical stuff down. They're just trying to get the right streaming equipment. That's what this whole conference is all about, right? It's about trying to get the right equipment and the right resources to produce the best possible online service that we can. And so one of the things that gets left out a lot is production and video. Part of it is because a lot of people don't know. I have a background in photography and videography, and so certain things I've studied and I've learned, and so those are the things that are important to me when I'm watching a production, whether it be a sermon online or a ministry, or whether it be a TV show or a movie. I'm very focused on not just the message or the script or the story, but also how things are put together, how things are structured, the composition, the lighting, the way scenes are put together, the audio quality, all those different things. And so let's just start with what is production. And so the three main components of video production is pre-production, filming, editing, and I personally like to break down editing into live editing and post editing. Live editing is if you're going live in your stream, it's the things that you're doing live to increase your production value. So it's your motion graphics, it's your lower thirds. If you're using multiple cameras, which I'm not today, but if I was using multiple cameras, maybe I would switch between the 2 different cameras or the 3 different cameras that I have in different angles. And within that, I can do cuts, I can do fades, I can do what they call J cuts, and all these different things. And so that's the live editing portion. And then of course post editing is after the video has already gone live and you go back and you review it, and maybe you want to cut some things out, or maybe you want to revamp some things or turn some things around and edit some things that way. And so I like to break down editing into those two, because some people don't edit their lives at all, and some people don't do post editing on their lives. So they do the live edit, and then it is what it is, and it's up there to live forever. Or some people take it down after the service is over. And so those are the 3 main components of production, of video production. And we won't focus too much on pre-production today, because pre-production in the video world is usually, it's the idea, it's the concept, it's the script writing, it's location scouting, it's putting together shot lists and things like that. In the ministry world, I would say pre-production is probably, for me anyway, I would say it's learning the songs, what songs are going to be sung that day, that Sunday or Wednesday, or whatever service whatever day your service is going to be on. Learning the songs, learning if there's any different elements that might need to be brought into it. So maybe the sermon title, or at least what the sermon is going to be about, because then I get involved with the pre-production, and I attend the choir rehearsals. I usually talk to my pastor beforehand, or one of the ministers, and get the sermon title and the concept of the sermon, and I use that to create the slides. And so I might add different elements in the slides based on the sermon title and the topic of the week. I also, with the choir rehearsal, I learn the songs, because if it's slower songs, I may not be doing as many cuts to different camera angles. I may want to just kind of linger on one particular angle, or one particular, if it's a solo, for example, I may want to obviously highlight the soloist rather than maybe the band, and just things like that. So there's not a lot in pre-production, but there is some. If you wanted to get involved in pre-production in your ministry, those are some things that you can do to highlight and prepare for your go live day or your filming day. And so filming, we're going to focus mostly on filming and editing today. And so filming is that's your go live day. So that's Sunday morning, Saturday night, Friday night, or whatever you're going live. For me, it's today. It's right now. That's my filming day. Today, right now, is my filming. And so with that, obviously, you want to make sure you have the proper equipment. You want to be prepared, knowing where everything is set up, how you want to have things set up. You don't want to just, and then today's going to be a lot of do as I say, not as I do, but you don't want to just set up a camera in the middle of the church, in the back of the church, and just, hit go live and kind of just hands off, and then hit stop streaming when the service is over. You want to look at things, and we'll get more into this as the session goes on, but you want to look more into things that are going to keep your audience engaged, is going to keep them watching and engage with the service, and obviously learning and listening, getting the message. And so the bulk of what we're going to talk about today is the editing. And again, like I said, I broke it down into live editing and post editing. And so we'll talk more about that today. Some other elements that affect production, you have audio, you have lighting, you have composition, and you have engagement. And so a big one for me that I learned very early on was audio. Audio is so important to your live stream, and even your pre-recorded videos. It's so important to your live stream and your pre-recorded videos, because people can typically deal with bad video, but most people can't deal with bad audio. When we've all, at this point, we've all experienced it, whether it's on our end, or whether we were watching someone else's stream where people can't hear, or the sound is muffled, or there's like some static or some feedback, or there's some electronic interference or anything like that, and you start to I remember when we first started streaming back in 2019, it was like we had some issues with, we had some electronic interference. I think it was a grounding issue or something, where the musician's keyboard was sending feedback into the audio system. And I remember I would be watching, and I just watched the numbers drop because people were just complaining about the audio. And so people can typically deal with bad audio, and our video wasn't even that great back then. But people can typically deal with bad video, but audio is crucial to your production. And so I know we just had a session earlier today about audio, and so I hope you guys were able to view that. If you weren't, definitely go back and watch the replay, and get some good tips on audio and how to improve your audio in your ministry. And so the other ones, lighting. You want to make sure you have good lighting. It's hard to watch a video that it's dark, you can't see me. Imagine if all this was dark and you couldn't see me. Even this lighting is not the best. There's some things I would have changed, but again, I'm by myself today, so I made it work. But you want to make sure you have good lighting. You want to make sure that there's not a lot of distracting elements. You may even want to add some accent lighting, like we have added some accent lighting here in our church with the lights back there on the cross and different things, just to help enhance the quality of the video. People pay attention to those things. They pay attention to the lighting, and they pay attention to the little details that you put in, and that makes them more engaged, because they're like, oh, they see how much work and effort you put into it, and so they want to be they sort of want to reciprocate that, right? If you've ever watched a YouTube video and you watch one that was just kind of thrown together and the lighting was bad, the audio was bad, you don't really want to watch. You don't really watch it for too long. But if you watch one that you can tell that a lot of time was put into it, especially us who we deal with media, so we know how much time it takes to edit, we know how much time it takes to get certain shots and things like that. You definitely appreciate that, and so other people appreciate it as well. And so you definitely want to make sure you have good lighting. You want to make sure you may want to, and lighting's fairly affordable. You can go all out and you can get DMXs and get spotlights and all these different things, and sometimes it's not necessary, but I've seen some cheap, we have them here, we have some cheap Amazon lights that just, for spotlights and things like that, they were like, I think they were like $30 US. And actually I think the whole kit was maybe like $50, and it came with 4 or 5 of them. So even just little things like that, just to enhance the production of and the quality of your stream. Composition, a lot of people don't know what composition is. So composition is basically your framing. So right now I'm framed on your screen. I have the TV over here. There's a lot of negative space over here, which sometimes is good and sometimes is bad. And negative space is just empty space. And so depending on what the subject is and the subject of the video, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. In this case, usually the bass player's over there, so usually it's filled, but today it's just empty space. And so you want to make sure your composition is good. The TV's kind of in a bad spot because you only see half of it, but for the purpose of this video, it wasn't necessary. But you definitely want to make sure you have good composition in your stream. So you want to make, you, again, like I said, you don't want to set it up in the back of the room or the back of the sanctuary of the church, or even if you're in your house and you set it up in the back of the room or somewhere, and the camera or those who watching feel forgotten about. There's people walking in front of the camera, and they're just kind of there. That will drive your engagement down very fast. So you want to be in a place where they feel comfortable. Like I'm sort of in your face, but I'm not. We're at a comfortable level that if we were having a conversation, this is about where we would be standing. And so that's your composition. You want to be mindful of those things when you're if you're expanding your media ministry and you're getting multiple cameras and different things like that. You want to be mindful of where you're placing them in the sanctuary, or different parts of the church, just because you want to be mindful of how it's going to look on camera, on stream, and how it's going to make people feel. You want them to feel comfortable. You want them to feel like they're there. You want them to feel like they're in the room, and that way they can be more engaged. They can want to participate. The last one is engagement, and that is things like obviously making sure whoever's speaking is, at least looking in the direction of the camera. I understand when there's people around, they may not always be focused on the camera, but at least once in a while, you want them to be able to look up and acknowledge the camera, that the camera is there. You also want to maybe even have the pastor or someone. One of the things we do is we welcome our online guests when we do our morning welcome and announcements and things like that. We have whoever is doing the announcements welcome our online guests and speak to them directly. I've seen other churches, they do a separate segment. So like when it's offering time or something like that, they'll have a separate segment that just focuses on the people that are online. Just things to keep people engaged and keep people watching. And because ultimately, again, going back to the Great Commission, we want people to hear the message. And if they're not engaged, or they don't feel like they're being engaged, then they're not really paying attention, and they're not getting the message. And as we know in Romans 10, it says, I'm going to paraphrase, but it says basically, how can they be saved if they've never heard? And so if they're not listening, then they won't hear, and then the message is sort of in vain. So you definitely want to make sure that people are being engaged. You're engaging the audience, and in turn, you maybe have someone that's manning the comments and things like that, that's able to engage back with them and have a dialogue. And so moving on to another part of engagement that I didn't talk about, is you want to have what they call pattern interrupts. So you want to have things that sort of break up the flow. You don't want someone standing or even sitting for an hour and a half or 2 hours or however long your service is, and it's just them talking for 2 hours, because we don't view media content like that anywhere else in the world. You don't watch a movie where someone's just talking for 2 straight hours, and there's no action, there's no engagement, there's no anything. There's just, so you want to think about your cuts. Again, like I said, if you have multiple cameras, you want to think about your cuts. Even if you have a single camera, if it's 4K anyway, you can do things like you can set up, which I did this in the beginning. I had which I didn't bring it with me today, but I have a Stream Deck, and on my Stream Deck, I had it zoom in. So every once in a while, I can hit that, because I only had the one camera, and it would zoom in a little bit closer. And so like if I had it here today, I would hit it, and it would maybe, it would zoom in and get, just more of a close up of my face and less of the rest of the area. And so you just want to have things that interrupt the pattern, interrupt the flow, and keep people engaged. A good example of this is if you've ever drove, like, let's say your commute to work, or your commute home from the church, or somewhere where you drive fairly frequently. I know it's happened to me plenty of times before I went full time with my videography company. But when I was working my regular 9 to 5, I would be driving. I would get in the car and I would drive home from work, and I take the same route every day. And I would get home and I would think about it, and I forget. Like, I would forget the entire drive home. It was like, it's almost like I woke up. It's almost like I got in the car, I went to sleep, I woke up, and I was home. And that's because it's a pattern. It's this, if they haven't built any new buildings, or, there wasn't an accident or something like that, my brain is just sort of like, yeah, it's the same stuff, same old stuff. And so that you don't need to worry about any of that. Just focus on driving and getting to where you need to go. And even that, nothing's changed. So you kind of just go on autopilot. And so your brain turns off and you're not really engaged. You may be listening to music or whatever, but you're not engaged at all in your driving. And so you forget the entire drive home. And so that's kind of the same thing. And it's all because it's the same thing. They call it, on long drives, they call it highway hypnosis, right? I'm sure you probably heard of that. It's when, and those people, a lot of times with those people, like, they might fall asleep. People who have experienced it, you might fall asleep or things like that if you're tired. And it's all because there's no pattern interrupt. It's all the same thing. It's consistent. It's all the same. The trees all look the same. The lines are just, droning on and on. AJ used the same example yesterday in his Q&A session on YouTube Live. And it's just like you see the lines droning on and on and on. And eventually you just kind of like, you zone out. And so we definitely don't want that during our service. You want to have that engagement. So some different pattern interrupts. Like I said, you can do multiple camera angles, so you can do different cuts. You can do motion graphics. So if you've ever, you probably see it all the time on YouTube, different things where you see the little graphics that come up and say like, share, subscribe, hit the little graphic that hits the notification bell. You can have lower thirds. You can have, like I've been using here today, you can have slides, just different things. In our stream, we use Bible verses. When the pastor goes to different Bible verses, we'll throw them up on the screen, and I animate them and different things like that, just to keep it engaging, keep it exciting, keep it different, so people can stay awake, stay engaged, and it kind of wakes them up, And when you do your cuts and things like that, for the most part, if you think about any other media, you don't have long drawn out segments like this. Usually there's a cut every 30 seconds to maybe a minute. If it's a very serious emotional scene with a long dialogue, you might go to 2 minutes, but usually not more than that. And that's because, again, they don't want you to get lost in that scene. They don't want you to kind of just zone out. Our brains are just wired to always be looking for changes and things like that. And so you want to have good pattern interrupts. You want to keep those in mind with your cuts and your transitions and things like that. And just to keep people engaged. So another thing I would say is review your live streams. So now we're getting a little bit into post editing. But you want to review your live streams. So you want to go back and watch your live streams. I know AJ uses the example a lot of time, like athletes, they review their game film. They go back. When I was an athlete in high school and college, I would go back and watch my performance. I would go back and watch and see what I can do differently. I would see where I messed up. And so you want to do the same thing with your live streams. You want to go back, review your live streams, watch. Even if you decide not to edit them, you just want to watch and look for things. And from a production standpoint, you want to see, well, was this cut too long? Could we have done a different camera angle here? what can we do here to keep people more engaged? So where it looks like we were losing people here. How can we fix that? If you have, like AJ always talks about, if you have the PTZ cameras, you want to go back and look and see, did you accidentally shift the camera angle while it was still live, and not cut to another camera, so while you move the camera and then cut back, were there any jarring moments or anything like that that could turn the viewer off? And so you definitely want to go back, review your live streams, and make any changes and edits and things like that. If you choose to edit, what we do is we usually go back, we edit our live streams, we cut out the praise and worship section, and the announcements and all those things, and we only post a sermon, just because that's the main message that we want to get out. And so if you were live, you got to experience all of it live. And I see a lot of other churches on YouTube do that as well. But you definitely want to go back, review your live streams, and if for nothing else, just to figure out ways to improve your stream and figure out ways to get better. I'm always looking to get a little bit better every time. I'm probably going to go back and review this this session and just look for ways that I can improve on how I do things. Lastly, here's some resources for you to improve production value. So I really love this book here, How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. I read it about 10 years ago, but I always refer back to it. At least once a year, I go back and read it. It has some great stuff in there. It just talks about overall video, but obviously there's so much we can apply to media ministry. And so I go back and I read that every year. We have AJ's book, Modern Media Ministry Made Easy. I found AJ on YouTube back in 2019 when we were looking to stream, because we're a smaller church, and every church on YouTube that was streaming were much bigger. I'm sure that's all you guys' stories and girls' story as well. They were much bigger, had much bigger budgets and things like that. And so AJ was a great resource for me to find things that were definitely more in our price range. And so I picked up his book as well, and I read it, and it's great. I personally use a lot of different stock sites just to get stock video footage. The music you heard earlier before the stream started was some stock audio music, royalty free, copyright free, all that stuff. I love Lightstock. They are a faith-based stock site where you can get stock photography videos that are based faith-based and Christianity-based. Envato Elements is great for I actually got the presentation, this presentation outline from Envato Elements. You have Adobe Stock, which they can be a little expensive. Storyblocks is great for video stock, but they're pretty expensive. But a lot of them also, I found, they have different discounts, whether it be student discounts or church discounts or things like that. You just got to reach out to them and reach out to somebody in their PR department and just ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. And they'll usually provide you with some kind of resource, some kind of discount or things like that. And the last one is just watch other quality productions. So like I said earlier, me personally, I watch different movies and TV shows and videos, and I watch it obviously I watch it for entertainment, but I also watch it with production in mind, always thinking about how I can improve my own production, whether it be in my production company, my video company, or whether it be on my media ministry, or just figuring out, okay, what can I do better? How can I do that? How can I incorporate that? Watching other churches online and just getting ideas. I know AJ was doing it before, and I'm sure he's been pretty busy, but I'm sure he'll probably get back to it eventually. But like just watching and reviewing other media ministry streams and getting ideas. I've gotten a lot of ideas from a lot of you in the Facebook group of stuff that I never thought to do. But after watching, I was like, hey, that's a great idea. I should try that, or we should try this or that. And that's a great way to just improve your production quality. And ultimately, like, all of this has been about to keep people engaged and get the message of the gospel out to the world. And so with that, that is my presentation. So let's talk. Any questions? I'm going to be looking down here in the chat to see if you have any questions or comments. I hope I didn't go too fast. I tend to talk fast when I'm nervous, which is, you'd think at being a minister for the last, I don't know, 5 years, I would not get nervous, but I still get nervous. So let's talk. Any questions, any comments? Look down here. One of the questions here was, do people go back, Team RHO said, do people go back to view your service and want to see the praise and worship? Some people do. Some people have asked to see praise and worship. And typically, most people don't, though. Most people watch live and they go back and they just want to review the message. So a majority of people, they don't mind us cutting out the praise and worship. But the ones that have asked, since I already have the file, usually I'll export just that portion if they really want it, and just email it to them or Dropbox or whatever. But it's not often. I've only, in the last 2 years, it's only been like a few times here and there. So it's not that, I don't think it's that big of a deal for a lot of people. But yeah, some people have asked. If it was a really good service, a really good praise and worship, people have asked. But most of the time, no. What software? Technobabble LLC says, what software do you use for post-production? I use Adobe Premiere. I have the whole Adobe suite, so it just made sense for me to use Premiere, just because I already had the suite for photography. I was using it mainly for I was using Photoshop mainly for photography, and so it just made sense to do Premiere. When I had a Mac, I used Final Cut. But obviously, when I switched over to PC a few years ago, I switched over to Premiere. But I do like now using DaVinci Resolve for color grading, because DaVinci Resolve has a really very good color grading. It's the best in the industry, really. So I usually mix down everything, export everything, and then color grade it and DaVinci Resolve, and then bring it back to Premiere, which is a lot of work, I know, but when you're doing weddings and things like that, you know, it's worth the time. Any other questions? Let's see. Technobabble LLC says, how many people do you think is ideal to run all of this for your media ministry? That's a good question. I'm personally right now doing it mostly by myself. We just haven't had the people, the volunteers, and the ones that we had, they weren't very tech savvy, and so it's a lot to teach them. And I'm working on teaching them, but again, I'm doing it by myself, so it's taking time. But I would say you need a good solid minimum. I would say probably 5 people. Because you definitely need one person to be monitoring the stream for comments and questions and things like that. You need someone that's going to be monitoring the cameras. You need someone that's going to be monitoring the person that's monitoring the cameras to make sure that they're paying attention and keeping engaged. And then also, like, just all the different social medias from a media ministry standpoint, because I also manage our Instagram, our Twitter. My pastor has TikTok now, so I'm doing that. He has his own personal YouTube channel, so I'm trying to manage that. So yeah, you need someone that's just gonna help you with all those things. You need somebody that's gonna be pulling up graphics and scriptures. And so yeah, it's a lot. I would probably say I haven't really thought about it, but I would say probably 5 people. That seems like a reasonable amount of people to run a media ministry. My former church that we were in, they had way more. It was also a bigger church. My pastor was the youth pastor there at the time, and they had about 4,000. I want to say it was about 4,000 members. Huge building. We had like they actually would stream on TV. We were on TBN and things like that. So obviously they had big TV broadcast cameras and stuff like that. And they had, I'm gonna say about 10 people. We had about 10 people on staff. And in the media room, just managing the TV board, the switcher, and all that, there was 3 people in there. And then you had somebody that was outside, that was in the sanctuary, that was calling out the different camera angles and different shots and things like that. And then, of course, we had 3 cameras, 3 broadcast cameras, and 1 like roaming camera. And so you're up to what, 10? I lost track of my math, but I want to say that was about 10, 12 people. So yeah, and then of course you had someone managing the soundboard, the mixer board, and then we had a front of the house mixer board and a back of the house mixer board. So yeah, it's a lot. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Team RHO says your setup is clean. Thank you. I take pride in trying to make it as clean as possible. That's one thing I hate, is a lot of wires and stuff like that. I like it to look clean and crisp, and obviously make sure the video looks good. Technobabble LLC says, completely agree on the solo team running everything. Yes, it's a lot. Yeah, Shane, I'm doing it by myself as well. Fortunately, my pastor's on sabbatical for this month, for the month of July. So we pre-recorded everything for the last month, and so that's been great for me because I was able to edit everything and just schedule it to post every Sunday. And like now I can just kind of relax. I did it in about 2 weeks, and now I was able to just kind of relax. So he went on vacation. I got to go on vacation too. So that's been great, but it is a lot of work, which I'm sure all of you know. Let's see. Jaquel, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Do you do more live editing to make it easier to edit and post? It depends. I like to do live editing. Yeah, I like to do live editing so that I don't have to worry about it later. The problem that I used to have was that I didn't have something like the A10 Mini Pro or the Extreme that was recording all the different camera angles, and so I would lose things in the live edit, and so that made me a little more hesitant. But now that I have something that I can record multiple camera angles at one time, yeah, I do a lot more live editing, and because I'm always like, well, if I messed up that camera angle, I can always go back and fix it. But in the beginning, I was a little more hesitant because I was like, if this is a bad angle or I cut at the wrong time, there's no way to fix it. It is what it is. That's all I got. So now, yes. Before I was more conscious, at least, of when I would edit, when I would make different cuts and things like that. So, yeah. Let's see. Darius says, a small team allows you to set the foundation. As the team grows, you should be able to execute the plan better. I'm still at the solo level. That is a good point, and I do love that. As much as like it is a lot of work, I love that I'm able to, and my pastor trusts me a lot. I've been with him since I was a youth. I think I was like 18 when we met. I'm 34 now. I'll be 35 in 2 weeks. But yeah, he trusts me a lot to do a lot of these things on my own, and he's just kind of like, yeah, go for it, or how much does it cost? Let me know, and we'll work it out. And so that helps a lot with being able to build a team, because I can build a team the way I want it to be, and set the standards and know exactly what I'm getting, versus when sometimes, and they're well-meaning, but sometimes they just throw a lot of volunteers at you, and you're just like, here, do something with them. and you're kind of like, well, you don't really know what you're doing, so it's kind of hard. So I definitely agree. It's much easier to build your team from the ground up when you have a small team versus when they just say, here, I got 10 people for you, and they don't care, because that's the other thing. Like my thing was like, I told our pastor, I told the congregation, I said, listen, if you want to join the media team, great, come on, I'd love to have you, but you gotta want to do it. You gotta want to do the work. You gotta want to do the long hours and the editing and things like that. So, I want people that want to learn. And if you want to learn, I'm happy to have you. Even if you're not tech savvy, if you want to learn, I can teach you the tech stuff. But you got to want to learn. If you're just going to kind of sit in there because like, hey, I'm just doing my service, then you're not really helping me because you're making it more work for me. So I definitely agree with that. Let's see, what else you say? Shane says, when you say live editing, what do you mean? So I covered it earlier, Shane. I don't know if you might have came in after, but live editing is basically like when you're doing live cuts, so or motion graphics, or you're throwing slides up live, or lower thirds, different things like that. Or if I was using my PowerPoint, if I was transitioning back and forth, that's what I consider live editing. It's not really an actual term. It's something that I kind of made up myself, but that's basically what live editing is. So if after this is over, if you want to go back and watch the replay, I covered it a little bit more in depth, but that's what live editing is. Let's see. T. Marcia said, I pre-record each Sunday and post a week later. I edit in Premiere and schedule too. How long does it take to edit and post your videos? Takes me 4 to 8 hours. Yeah, about the same. Takes me about 4 to 8 hours. It depends on how much motion graphics I'm putting in, how many scriptures. My pastor uses a lot of scriptures, which is great, but it's a lot of work for me. So it depends on how much of the scriptures I'm putting up. All those different things. I don't have to tell you, but yeah, on average, it takes me about 4 to 8 hours. And sometimes like we switch up the intro, the countdown, because I like I said throughout the whole thing, like I like to keep it fresh and new and engaging. So if we've been using the same countdown for a few weeks, I just like to switch it up for people like, oh, hey, this is interesting. It's new. Let me see. Even if it's just switching up the music, and that just keeps people engaged, a little bit further. Let's see. A lot of comments coming in through. Techno Bible LLC says a willing heart and a spirit to learn is essential. Exactly. And let's see. Brandon Lewis says, how much delay would you recommend for a live stream? I don't do a major delay. Maybe like 5. If I do a delay, it's like 5 to 7 seconds. That's usually enough for me to catch anything that, like, if something happens or something like that. Like, quick story, crazy story actually. So last year, I want to say it was around September. One of our ministers was here she was doing a service, a Sunday service, and it was just me and her, and I was live streaming, and she was ministering, and I had bought some new lights that I didn't realize. And this is actually a good tip. I had bought some new lights that I wanted to try out, and I didn't realize that she was epileptic, and so she had a seizure live on stream. And so it was like, I realized it when I realized she was having a seizure. I was able to catch it, but it was a good 5 or so seconds. So I caught it right when she started to seize, and I was able to stop the stream, switch to one of those "we'll be right back" screens or whatever. But yeah, I would say probably like 5 to 7 seconds is a good delay, but also that's a good thing, like I said, is like know your people, for especially when it comes to things like lighting and things like that, because I did not realize that those lights would trigger her epilepsy. And so that was something that I should have been mindful of, but I wasn't. Fortunately, I am CPR trained, which is another good thing. If nobody on your staff, your church staff is CPR trained, definitely get them recommended to your ministry staff, at least. That everybody should be CPR trained, not just the children's worker or different things like that. Because fortunately, I was able to assist her until the paramedics came, whereas somebody else might not have known what to do. So that's definitely a good thing. Let's see. Jacquel says, do you recommend announcements? If so, how do you approach it? Do you record someone talking it out, or is it voiceover slides? We do both. When it's live, we just do voiceover slides with we'll put them in a little lower third box so people can see them. But sometimes like I said, we just like to keep things fresh, keep things new. So sometimes if I get the idea, like now it's summertime here in New Jersey, so I'm like, hey, as much as I can, let's do stuff outside. So I'm like, so I'll call my pastor and say, hey, who's doing the announcements this week? And he'll give me the name, and I'll schedule a time to meet up with them and pre-record them outside, or different things like that, just to take advantage, because I hate the winter, and so I like to be outside as much as possible. So definitely, whatever works for you, whatever makes it easier for you, because they both come with their challenges. Slides are probably easier, voiceover slides, but I also, again, I'm always trying to keep the audience in mind, and I'm like, that gets pretty boring after a while, so let's try and do something different. Let's see. Eduardo says, I would love to start back the production team at church. The project became a solo team and not much support. Yeah, I totally understand that, Eduardo. And hopefully as things open up, you'll be able to get some new people in that will be able to help you. Because like I said, we all discussed it. We're all here because it's a lot of work, and we want to learn ways to do it better. So if that's all the questions, I guess I'll end it here. Give you guys, 10 minutes back before the next session. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. And I will see you around the conference. I'll be jumping in and out of comments. I have some other things to do later on today, but I'll be jumping in on the different sessions because I also want to learn some things. I'm not an expert in any of this stuff. And so I hope you guys are enjoying the conference so far. And thanks for joining.